building the public is really difficult on two areas. And this is what most people stop at: the consistency of needing to do it and the things that are actually impactful to your followers. That is the area where you get that mix. You're like, sharing to share without a purpose of a takeaway for it is not valuable.
My man, Nick, welcome back. 3 times? Is this 3 times already? Jeez, I got to find more guests.
Third time's the charm. It's because you don't have any more friends. You're just like,
I just ran out of people. I'm like, all right, who's cool? Who's got the knowledge? And I'll just reach out to them over and over. Maybe we should just co-host this podcast at this point eventually. That's where we're going.
I would appreciate that. That would give me more things to do, and it's definitely the thing I need.
Yes. It by watching you and getting to speak with you, I feel like your calendar is not full enough. I think we just got to throw more things on there. Let's add a 2-hour recording podcast every single week to your schedule.
The funniest thing about this, dude, is like I know one of the topics that's like sitting really heavily on my mind is like building in public and building in the know. And a positive like a positive side effect of doing this is like you don't have to explain to people what you have going on, because they're like, yeah, no, I see it. No, you're good. I got it. Like, you're totally fine. I know I have this amount of time. And you don't even have to you don't have to act urgently. You don't have to say you're busy. You don't have to do any of this thing. You just have to like show.
Yeah. You don't have to be like, I have a hard stop at 12. You're like, as you saw from my tweet, I have a meeting at 12 p.m. So like, yeah, it's great. Look, I want to get into the building in public. We're definitely going to talk about that because I think that's super important and actually a lot harder to do. Easier said than done. A lot harder to actually do. But let's start here. I think everyone, is on Twitter these days who follow you, and everyone talking around. There's the panic. What's going on? What's happening with Facebook? What's happening with TikTok? Should we diversify? Should we move everywhere? So a bunch of loaded questions in here. So let's just wrap it up with a little bit with like, what do you think as the state of, I guess, DDC right now and online marketing? How are you wrapping your head around everything going on?
Okay. And this is, I have a good view. I have a good bird's eye view of a lot of this for 2 reasons. One, I'm an angel in Triple. I'm an angel in Northbeam. I'm an angel in Motion. I'm an angel in Marketer Hire. Like I've spread my chips very strategically to be involved with a lot of the tastemakers in digital, right? Like I've been doing this for almost 10 years now. So like I'm trying to spread myself so that I have the ability to comment on everything. So like covering analytics, covering attribution, covering creative, covering hiring, covering freelance, covering agency work. We ourselves have like 180 clients at this point. Actually 166 clients, not 180. We have almost 180 employees. So like we have a good viewpoint in this. And I came into 2022 super, and I think I even tweeted and made a full YouTube video, fully supporting like Facebook and the relationship that they're going to be in a better limelight. And actually even Taylor Holiday had a really good stance on this about the public opinion of Facebook is going to improve for 2 reasons. One, it probably couldn't get any worse. Like it couldn't get worse than it was. And two, it in the articles and in what our reps are talking about, they are working on data solutions. They are working on integrating and getting more data back, more accuracy. So I was like, let's go. I'm behind you. How do we do this? And then it didn't change. And then a lot of the brands that we were working with are starting to leave and going like, dude, we just can't afford to do this. We have a tool that we can see things. Insert any little analytical tool that you're going to use. They're able to look at it, but like, dude, it's just the return and the things are not there like it once was. And so I think the overall consensus is still a little bit like subpar, sub-convinced that Facebook's going to come around. And I'm not fully over there yet, but I'm seeing cracks in the shields that I once was using to protect everybody. And now I am thinking about plan B. Plan B meaning, is it other channels? Is it more Google? Is a Google update going to prevent us from doing more work on that end? So there's a little bit of a confusion, a little bit of panic, and like, yeah, we feel it as well. But I also look at and try to zoom out. I won't go super macro on this, but we are going to experience a little bit of panic across the states and the world. So is it is it so far off base that I'll throw it back to you is it, should we be expecting something different on the platforms that we're selling sometimes non-essential products to the consumers when there's a lot of fear and angst and frustration in the overall market or economy right now?
Yeah, I look, I have this conversation a lot, and we've spoken about this, where I don't think people take external factors into consideration with their marketing, right? Like there's a war going on right now. I don't think people are buying. I don't think people are buying high end insert whatever, right? Like I think it's normal to see a little bit of a dip in behavior, right? Which is why I think everyone going back to the start of COVID, realizing that there was a unicorn of attention on the platforms was at an all-time high. Everyone pulled off, so costs were almost at an all-time or at like a 5-year low. That was the perfect storm. You should have like throw all your money into your advertising if that's not at that point, right? I think everyone would love to go back to that point. But it begs a question that I've always asked, and since iOS, and anytime there's a complaint or talking about the platforms or cookieless web or what's going on, is have we just been spoiled for the last 5, 6, 7 years? Are we just spoiled? Because go back before that, marketing was marketing. People were still selling stuff. We didn't have the insights. No one knew what a ROAS was. When you and I first started running Facebook ads, we had to manually calculate a ROAS, and that still wasn't even the metric we were going by. I mean, you worked with big brands who wanted impressions, right? Like that's like, so are we just really, really spoiled and we had something taken away from us and now we're just sad, and then we just don't know how to be marketers? And we're so reliant on button pushing and pressing and being able to see instant data? Or is it really, this is just a giant change and we're all fucked?
Well, but for the sake of me being more of a half full kind of guy, like I definitely don't want to choose option number 2. But I got roasted a little bit ago because I've been bold enough in saying like a lot of companies and businesses were built that should not have been built, and using tools that were a lot easier to use than ever before, right? Like someone couldn't log in and do like an easy door-to-door displacement of like an ad at everyone's mailbox. Like you had to like hard manual labor to do that. You could log into Facebook, take a Facebook course, and be like, you could do some damage in like 2017, 18, 19, even 2020, probably 2020 especially. And then it started turning a little bit harder 2021, 2022. So the laziness was supported and actually encouraged by us doing like trust the platform. And that's still the narrative right now. I was like, no, just trust the platform, which now I think the consensus across those that are executing with multiple or been doing it for long enough, they're like, yeah, I trust the platform because I can't afford to stress about this anymore. Let me go control the controllables, which is your creative, your page, your offer, your product, like the things that everybody should have been doing, things that we are now having to build processes for. Because look, we're at a point where we're a little thick. You're a little bit more dynamic than us. You have to be super integrated into the page, into the offer, into the product, into the avatar, the creative that you've been thinking about for X amount of weeks. We have to build that in like a larger scale, which I've seen be a lot more difficult than I anticipated. Is it going to get done for some people? Sure. Is it going to be a little bit harder to get someone to invest? Like, I don't need to do an avatar brand product development. Like, but I think you do. Like, before we could get away with audiences, and I did a live yesterday, and there's like 3 layers of impact and ease that you have to like go towards. If you're a brand, if you're a marketer, if you're an agency, if you're whoever the fuck you are, if you're in the business of slinging clicks online, you have to go through the same process. If I'm going to adjust a campaign, or if I'm going to adjust a strategy, or if I'm going to adjust an audience, that's super easy and low impact. It might give me an incremental change. It might be like small, something like a point of something. And then you move up a little bit further away from that, a little bit more effort, but a little bit more impact is like, okay, I can think strategically about new creative or new content. I'm going to go shoot that. I'm going to go hire that influencer. I'm going to go get that creator. Okay, that impact might be felt a little bit stronger, right? You can move some needles there. And the final thing is like, you have your offer and you have your product page and you have like an avatar, you have like some sort of lead page, something that's like convincing them. A lot more work, a lot more thought, but the impact could be much more significant. Thinking, and like that's just like one framework of thinking through how I'm going to make a decision or true impact on these. And before, everybody was where? Right here. They like change the style. Is it a CBO or is it an ABO? Is it this? Is it that? Like, it was so shallow minded because it could be.
So then how do you then lead your agency, right? Your team? Because I don't know if you're seeing this on your end, but through our agency, what we're seeing is a lot more time is spent now on client education and things that we're hired to run Facebook ads, but most of our calls are talking about other things than Facebook ads that could make your Facebook ads work. And we're almost becoming growth consultants and strategists in their business. Is that the new direction you're going to have to go, especially if you're going to think that there's going to be a cookieless web and we're going to lose all this and they're all going to play nicely?
So I'm literally, and I don't think you can show the screen on this stuff unless I can. Would it show up on the pod or no?
On the video, yeah.
Okay, so
not on audio. We can't show screen on audio. If you could figure that out for me, that would be really incredible.
Be rich.
Yeah, very rich.
Perfectly millionaire. So short answer is you're absolutely correct, because look, we run a pod system. I think most of the scalable or successful teams that get past that 50 client mark, 60 client mark, you need to be podded up so that it's operating within its own little business. And in that, we actually turned our media buyer into 3 roles, because exactly what you're talking about. First, you have to identify the people, and you have to identify, and this kind of goes into a little bit of a leadership thing. So I might pivot with this as well, potentially. In the building of the groups and the pods, and in the building of like who and how we're running media nowadays, and what is it, 2022? We realized that we were getting by, similar to how laziness of people on platforms, thinking that one creative could be spread across every one of the channels that you use. YouTube, the same shit. Facebook, TikTok, all the same shit. I look at that the same way in our structure across our acquisition team or retention team. Acquisition, like I have my media buyer. She is good at creative content analysis, communication, offer development, KPI setting, projections. Like you're like, what? There's only 2 people that know do this. Miguel Angel, which is like an incredible marketer out of Canada, and then like Mayor Benaim, 2 like full stack marketers that like get this shit. Unicorns, unhireable, right? I'm building a business that I need people. I need bodies. I need people that can execute, that can be at their highest, A players, B+ players. So when you look at that role, it's actually like 3 roles in one. That media buyer is now actually, and has always been, but we never we just didn't want to believe this. They are a creative strategist providing feedback on a page, an offer, ideation, creative strategy, growth strategist. I'm going to set a KPI. I'm going to communicate to the client. I'm going to manage expectations. I'm going to develop a way of testing for everyone to follow. I'm going to be the person to answer the questions. And then finally, at the bottom, you have a channel buyer. You have a mercenary on a platform. They're going to do your analysis. They're going to do the media. They're going to do the reporting. You're going to pull that. And you could probably get away with like maybe a data analyst. That could be someone floating. They don't have to be that person. But looking like that alone has changed the way that we had to view things, because some of our media buyers, they don't want to talk. That's not them. Mm-hmm. They're like an editor. They want to sit in their bay. They want to do their shit.
So let me put my headphones on and work.
Always, dude. So, and I even throw this back to you. Like you're a leaner team on this, dude. I know some people have to wear multiple hats because of the size and because of the structure purposely built. How do you look at it when I'm trying to tell you like there's this role is no longer a single role?
I think, I mean, there's 2 problems, right? One is that person. How do you get that person to become that type of person? Because like you said, you have really, really talented media buyers who should not be talking to clients.
Yes.
And that's why, like, I've never really loved the account manager rule. And I may piss off a lot of account managers here, but I've never really loved it because they would get on a call with the client, very good at talking to the client, very good at doing housekeeping. But if the client had a technical question, it was always, let me go back to the team and get back to you. Yep. So you just wasted everyone's time for an hour because the real question the client had, you couldn't answer. You were just talking housekeeping and just putting on a face and like just taking notes from the media buyer and relating it, but you couldn't answer it. So I always believe the media buyer has to be the account manager, has to be the one talking to the client because they're the technical person, right? So they have to have some sort of communication with the client. But the other part is then now the switch in dynamic with the client, right? So forget finding to hire that person. It used to be client looked at ROAS, great, we're happy, let's just keep going.
Yep.
Now it's not. Now you're like, well, check out your page and your conversion rate and check out this and your look. They're like, man, you're not our e-commerce director, right? You're a media buyer. Go make Facebook work for us. That's what we pay you for. Go do that. Stop telling us all the problems we have on our end, right? Like, go do your job. And then you have e-commerce directors that get hired into the roles, like bigger companies, who the first thing they need to do to make an impression is, guess what? The easiest thing to pick on is, look how much you're paying this agency. Look how much you're paying these guys. Why? We could do, like, look what they're doing. And it's the easiest thing to crack down on. So I think you have so many moving parts now that it's not just a matter of just finding that person. You can find a person and train them how to talk to a client and whatever. And you could put them all in a Slack group. So like you have someone managing the communications a little bit clearer. I find the hardest part is now the dynamic of, cool, I'm your media buyer. I'm this, and this, but it's all for the same price as I once was a media buyer. But you hired an e-commerce director. So now are we stepping on each other's toes? And now your new e-commerce director just shat on everything we did. Because they're trying to bring, bigger brands are bringing this in-house a little bit. They want an e-commerce director that could look at everything from a macro. They're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on the platform. They need someone to manage it. The owner's not going to do it anymore. So there's so many moving parts there that I find way harder to manage than just finding that talent.
You're 1,000,000,000% correct. And you and I have talked about this in the past, maybe not to this extent, but it is more important now of selecting the partner than it is selecting the media buyer or the person that can do the media for them. So how we're getting around this. And the first point you said is like, I believe that the media buyer should be communicating to the brand. Fully agree. I think the way that we have to go about this is that growth strategist or the person that's in the communication has to be technical enough to not need to go get their friend or their buddy or the person that could get that answer, for one. For two, the media buyer is accessible. It just is on an ad needed basis, or it's like, yo, I actually need you to come on this week, or I need you to come on next week, plan that schedule ahead. But it can't be like, that can't be the person they're going to, because they need to be living in platform.
Correct.
And then on the actual education of client side, because of what iOS has put us through, and because of it's not even a lack of, there's always gonna be that lack of trust of like poor teams that do crappy work for you. It's always like, you can't win for every client. The expectations are what the expectations are. But if you were to look at the ability to convince someone to take the medication that they have already been prescribed, but just don't want to like actually take it, is very difficult, and also something that we will never get away from. Like, you could be as clear as day, you could be as honest and upfront as possible. There's just this negligence and stubbornness that will always be living within another team, because it's not like, you're not for them. Like, you aren't theirs. Like, they can't push on you. They can be thankful for you, they can be grateful for you, but you aren't theirs. You're not on their team. And I think that is more and more true now because of the bad taste that this has been left in their mouth of like, I can't trust people. I can't trust what's going on. I can't trust these platforms. How do I trust the guy that I don't know on these platforms that I don't trust to tell me what it is I need to be doing?
When they're being transparent, telling me, I don't know, right? It's a shit show. I don't know. We're testing, right? It depends. We're using those answers. If you're transparent, you're using that clear communication with them where you're like, I don't know. We're weathering the storm together a little bit. So now not only is it like, I don't trust this guy, but he's not even giving me clear-cut answers, right? So you have a mixture of a lot of things. Their lack of trust is going because, like you said, they're off the team, but no one has the real answers. And anyone who claims to have the answers right now is lying, because things are broken, right? Like, we're trying to figure this mess out together. So it's just a bad storm.
It really is. And I think it can be done. I think the brands and businesses that understand that it's a lot more involved than it once was will find success.
Yeah.
It won't be like what it was, but it's also, we're using really like rose-colored lenses to look at what happened in 2019, 2020, and even 2021 was not that bad. Like, at the beginning of it was fine. Towards the end was a little bit like meh, but when I looked at the Q4 results overall, like, it wasn't that bad. Like, I think it would still hit targets. It was just an elongated perspective rather than just like that hot pop that we all used to on that weekend of Black Friday.
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake people made post iOS right after was they cut spend, right? when to spend, probably when spending the same amount that they were spending before, even though you were blind and you had no choice as a media agency. I look back at the mistakes we look at from an agency, from all the clients that we've had. The biggest mistake was the cutting spend. They would have hit all their goals. They would have hit all their MER goals. They would have hit everything if we didn't cut spend, and which is, I mean, that's the scary part, right? To look at. But you are very open. You're building in public. You're acquiring. You're buying in a bunch of agencies. You're building the machine here. What's your take now on the importance of agencies? Right. I know it's a hard question to ask you because you're going all in on picking them up. But do you think we're going to experience like some sort of agency Armageddon, for lack of better words?
No, I think it's an accurate word. I think it's important to acknowledge this. So let me paint some context first. We've acquired 3 agencies in the last 2.5 years, all at varying sizes. Our check has been anywhere between like 175 to 1.2 million. So like we're bootstrapped. We're not funded by, like, we are cash flowing this ourselves across the partners and across the agency. And so we are intimately having very, very unique deal structures and conversations, because at the same time that we are gobbling up other folks to kind of add on, we are having conversations with people wanting to gobble us up. And there's a couple other people in the space that are doing this, meaning like looking for smaller shops that they know that can be bolt on. Because the difference for a lot of the acquisitions that we go for is like we're using it for acquisition of talent rather than acquisition of revenue. The revenue is important. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to buy an asset that's not at least breaking even or covering itself. But because of our deal flow, but because of the way that we're structured, because we have the inbound, because we are so public about things, we are able to command an authority of deal flow and authority of credibility. So that's my baseline real quick. In this, we are having conversations with PE firms and banks and people that are wanting to buy us up for what we have access to, our people and the products and the brands and the skill sets that we have, right? Well, when we look at other people's books, similar to what's happening on the e-commerce side, you see a hockey stick in 1920, a little bit of 2021, and then you see a dip in overall rev and performance back in 2021, and then early in 2022, and then all the conversations we have, we probably talked about 2 or 3 agencies a month. Everyone's like, yeah, it was fun, and then it got not so fun, and then everyone realized, oh my gosh, I have this overhead, I am this leader, I am doing these things, and like they're really like a really good media buyer, or a really good strategist, or a really good creative. And I'm like, I hear you. I understand this. Like, I went through all the steps too. I didn't, even to this day, I have a little bit of like, should I still be leading or growing a team? One of my head guys was like, are you the guy to get us to the 15, 20, 30 million? I'm like, I believe I am. Maybe. So I think you're going to see people that, similar to an e-commerce brand that was built when it not when it was a little bit easier. I think agencies are going to still follow around the same route. I also see that the trend of like be a specialist and just do 1 or 2 channels purely was like what was happening. Right now we're seeing a little bit of trend going back towards that. Like, I have a Google guy I need on Facebook. Oh, I have a Facebook guy I need you on email. It's getting a little bit more segmented, when arguably we're able to close and partner across our suite of services. Now it's like, I'm good over here, can you just do this? And I'm like, I mean, yeah, like we can, but I don't know, brand A, B, C, I don't think you want that. I don't think you want to be doing that stuff. So it's really interesting to see the trend and change of this. And also, there's a shit ton of money that people are still sitting on from what happened these last couple of years that they're still looking to deploy. And in deploying it, they are looking at shops like ours because of the growth of aggregators, because of the growth of e-commerce as a general, because of the growth of like small family owned shops that are going like, look, we know this trend is hot, we know this trend is here, how do we in our client base behind us get involved? So a lot of this is some real shit that I don't think the trend of agency gobble up or agency like acquisitions is really going to end. If anything, we're like, maybe we're climaxing and it might drop a little bit, but the demand is definitely still there based on conversations we're involved in.
So we're seeing still way more shops pop up, way more agencies pop up, which is like it could be a freelancer. Like I never loved the word agency anyways, right? So you're seeing a lot of those pop up. Are you still just like sticking around in this game because of the exit, or do you still believe that agencies will continuously have its purpose here?
I think I would be lying to say like
And you could tell me like that was just
good. Dude,
I just threw a bad one at you. Yeah.
No, it's fantastic. Like,
I promised you beach balls, like lob balls down the plate, and sorry, I threw a curveball.
The only reason why I come on is because you team me out with the softie.
Yeah.
No, dude. If I'm gonna be public, let's fucking be public. I would be lying to say if I wasn't excited about the opportunity to exit. If that is again, like I'm speaking on behalf of, yes, I am I have primary ownership, but there's still other opinions in this. And I know because of how public I am and because of how much deal flow happens between myself and my co-founders, there probably will be some sort of golden handcuff. There probably will be some sort of like stick on for earnout. There will probably be some sort of like thing that will have to be achieved. So even if I said like, awesome, fuck it, let's go, I probably still have a year to 2 years after that. So I'll just get that out of the way. I still think, and I don't know if I've said this to you, but I still think the agency life for people that are not clear on what they want to do, are interested in the space but don't have the money to do it themselves, want to test themselves across various humans with high executing humans. And I still believe that we enable a lot of the world's economy, especially as we got more and more diversified, especially as we have more and more team offshore, not outhouse, offshore. That to me has never happened as much. Maybe the old tech companies were able to hire and find quality talent in Eastern Europe, in Asia, in India, Pakistan, etc. Right? I realize India is part of Asia, but this now more than ever, at the size that we are, we're still as profitable as we've ever could be. I think that this is still enough to keep going, and I personally still am stoked about it because of the impact of this. We think that this could grow to like 225 teammates, 225. So we get a double again in the next 2 years, and still have a process or still have a way of managing or building that is replicable because of how we built it originally on the pod style and because of how we built it originally on a pure specialist structure. We have 7 offers, right? We have 7 different things. Each one of them is its own standalone micro business that if it had to be sold or if it had to be broken or if we had to double into, we could. Not everyone's built like that. Some people are like really convoluted or really integrated with each other. We aren't by design. So I look at this and I go, as not the only partner doing everything, like there's still a lot of hunger across the board, but we look at each other going like, are we in it? Are we good? Every year we check on each other and like, yeah, let's keep going. So until that day, until I look across the group and go like, how are we feeling? How big are the bags on everyone? We keep going.
But then what about the brands, right? Like putting the brands into play here. When I first started my business, and I remember even when I graduated, right? I graduated and I wanted to go get a job in marketing because marketing always fascinated me. I loved marketing. That was all my electives. I'm a poli-sci graduate, useless degree. And I took all my electives in marketing. And I remember my first job, like the few jobs I went on, it was marketing positions, marketing coordinator, and it was pretty much Excel spreadsheet data entry. Like that was what a marketing job was. Everyone growing up right now through this world and graduating, now you have social media marketing being taught as courses in a lot of these programs. They're all coming out. Yes, you will always have people who are more skilled than others, and I'm not trying to take that away, but the uniqueness of being a Facebook media buyer is gone. There's a bazillion courses that I could go buy, including yours. I'll plug you, that you could give any media buyer to start and go play, like, here, learn, go start playing and become dangerous. Like I could train my own team, right, off of what everyone else is doing and not have to invest my own time and money into doing it. So if I'm a brand and I'm hiring marketing people, those are the people that I want coming in on my team, because I'm trying to think, no real brand was ever built, or no real business was ever built on the back of an agency. That's where I'm kind of playing around with. So long-winded question to get to the point of, do you think brands are going to start, like, you're going to see a slip in a lot of different agencies? Because a lot of these brands are going to be like, fuck this, I got to do this myself.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always going to be an element of that. I think there's always going to be someone that thinks that they can do it themselves, or someone that thinks that they could run this back and not need a specialist or strategist or someone on that they're hiring to do it. But it's could have been that forever. Like,
No, but they could hire the strategist right now, right? Like, a lot of these brands right now could hire the strategist and not have an agency. Because I think the biggest one, you touched this a little bit, why you're different. But a lot of businesses are like, they got a Facebook agency, they got an email agency, they got a Google agency, they got a TikTok agency, they got a creative agency, they got this. Add that up, it becomes almost like, let me hire 3 people and then hire a content agency that just makes content for me based off what my team wants, and they're all in-house and they're all mine.
Okay, so think about it like this.
And I don't even know the answer. I'm torn on this also. I go back and forth on this as well.
I don't think there is an answer right now, because I don't think there. All right, let's keep going. The thought on this is like, I do think that there's going to be less people looking for agencies, or less things like, I need you to do all for me and I need to sign the 6-month year contract, because of the wins are not as like parabolic, and the wins are not as like, oh my God, I could have never have done this myself. There's a lot of like loss mitigation that agencies or teams are getting hired for, to be like, you know this better, I can focus on other things, just don't lose me money.
Yeah.
The amount of those conversations have grown over the time, versus like, I don't know where to begin, I don't want to do anything, please help me. Like that the tone and the conversation is different. The need is still there. The need might be a little bit different for what they're using us, but I'll do a part of the pitch of like, when a brand comes, I go, look, we're best when you're looking to do other things inside your business for you to focus on. You can kind of trust that this is going to get made and handled, and we're going to get it to you at the right time. Or you have a lot of money and you don't have any processes built internally to execute tests or create options like we can. Those are the 2 real main times that you would need somebody like us, because the conversations that we've had with very educated brands that know that they need to have it in-house, brands that go like, eventually we'll take this in-house, that workflow of like editor, designer, creator to test, to evaluate is not there. Even some agencies don't even have that. It's this, we've never had to think about being our own agency and being our own media company, and the way in which, and the thing that we sell is a physical product, like we've ever had now. Because it never used to be. It used to be a black box of like, I needed this dude that's hitting the keys in a certain type of way and scaling in a certain type of way. Now it's like, oh shit, I actually need a creative person that I can get me to put it into the platform. So I think the rise of a creative strategist, the rise of a CMO with an understanding of paid media, that is the unicorn. That is what I think everyone's striving to have, because you could hire a part-time Upwork button pusher that would be able to take what you've ideated and strategically thought of content-wise and be just as dangerous.
Yeah. Look, I can make the case for agencies, and I do every single day, right? Like when I pitch, I make the case for agencies. So I'm a pro agency person. I just think if you don't have any part of what you're offering is as growth consultancy in any aspect or any area, you're not going to survive. That's my like harsh absolute opinion, just like thinking about it, that if you can't advise brands on overall growth and looking past just the one channel. So if you just start an agency and you're like, hey, I'm really good with Facebook ads, let me run your ads, but you don't know how to translate that into the macro of how the brand looks and the other avenues they should go, even if you're not running those channels, but advising them that email, SMS, your page load speed, all these things factor in, and the things that you could control versus things out of your control, and advise them on growth, I think your agency is going to have a very hard time.
100%. 100%. And then you're going to get, which is fine. Like know when it's time to sell that vehicle.
But yeah, go call Nick and go sell your agency to him. We're doing really good at tying things into pitching for you here.
Not by design.
No, I know. Just these are the lob balls, I promise you. I think what it comes down to is again, I also am a firm believer that it looked really good to start your own agency, right?
Yeah.
The amount of money that was coming. You're now, running what, 180 team members?
Close.
Your role when you started structured and when you were the media buyer, you were doing this and you were getting going, drastically changed. And I do believe there are some people, and I've said this many times, there's some people who are better off working for other people mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, that they're starting a business, but they're better off going to find, say, like, my strength better serves Jason, my strength better serves Nick. I could get taken care of and I could get paid rewardingly for it versus owning their own business because it's cool to say I own my own business.
100%. I think, and I was that person. I thought I was better suited to support other people's visions and dreams. Really did. I really thought that was all I was.
Which there's nothing wrong with if that was really what you're set out to do. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You need both.
No, and the I think the judgment of the way I delivered that tone that I just had is because at that time I wasn't myself. I wasn't believing in. I didn't have the conviction of myself that I was able to like actually do this. And it took Jake, my co-founder, to be like, "What are you talking about? Like, step back. Like, you can XYZ, da da da." And I go, "Fine, let's go for it. Worst case is I can go get another job. Worst case, I make money. I know how to fish. I'll go get another job." The change of where we were before, of like, I have to manage campaigns, I have to manage relationships. I still believe that you have to do it before you can hand it off to somebody else. Like, if you don't understand the industry now, like right now, if I still had to plug back in and run traffic and media, it might take me a week and a half to kind of get back up to speed. But look, I'm going to crack it. I will, and I'll go through it. But the change in managing people, and I love that we're managing people on an agency. Like, this is why, I think you asked me before, this is why I love this business. It's because it's people all around. It's your people, it's their people, it's how your people and their people are communicating. It's chess on a level of like EQ that I've really, really thrived for, because this is something that I've always loved. But being able to do it when you have like dollars and cents in business tied to it, and really seeing individuals grow into leaders that they didn't expect themselves to grow into, or individuals losing and not being who they thought they were, but having this come to God moment going like, "Oh fuck, I actually need to change." That's what it really turned to. And then doing it all digitally without looking people in the face on a day-to-day basis on business. Very, very interesting, very unique, dude. Like, I think that the growth and change by doing it so publicly for so long, like this is my 7th or 8th year of building publicly and building three businesses off the back of the same exact ethos, which is community, creative, and content is going to drive everybody. Well, if you actually look at, and this is why I'm such a strong advocate for the agency world, is you have to communicate, you have to own your own shit, and you have to be upfront and honest about what your skill set is, or else you're going to get left behind and no one's going to ask those questions of you. If I were to do it all over again, I probably would build more externally with other countries, more than I did in America right now, because the gratitude and the dependability I've seen after doing this for so long is so much higher for a non-American core company, a core team. I think the reason why we can't go that fast, that quick, or be all that right now is because the receiving end, the belief in broken English is so negative, and the ability to this receiving person, client, et cetera, brand, et cetera, to believe that broken English is actually more languages that you've ever spoken in your life is very difficult to convince. And it's not even worth the convincing, which is why you always need to have a counterpart that speaks and looks and plays the part.
I love that. And I think listening to you talk, I mean, I remember after I had the podcast with Gary Vaynerchuk and we were sitting in his office chatting, I was like, "Hey, can I ask you a personal question?" He's like, "Sure." I'm like, "If you had to rebuild Vaynermedia today, how would you do it? I'm building an agency. I'm just curious, how would you do it?" And he goes, "Man, I wouldn't." And I was like caught off guard. He goes, "I would never build an agency right now." He goes, I love my people, right? And he said this very clearly. We have 800 plus staff. Do you know how hard it is to run 800 plus people? Like, I sat in an office and I was doing strategy. That's what I loved. And then all of a sudden I'm doing people. Jill doesn't like
Yep.
Susan, but they're sitting next to each other. Bill doesn't like the way Kim spoke to the client on the call. We need to get Kim off the account. And like, he goes, that's my day. I'm not involved in strategy. I don't know what ads are going out. I don't know what's doing anything. And because we were talking, he's like, where's your strength? I'm like, strategy. And he goes, well, that's the first thing you're going to lose when you build your team, right? Like as you build, you're going to have strategy for the business, but your day-to-day won't be strategy, it'll be people. So if you want to build a business, make sure you actually like people. And you touched upon that. So it's just funny because you both kind of said the same thing. But building in public, which you're doing right now, wanting to have an exit, right? And looking at those things. Does that scare you a little bit? And we'll talk about the hard things about building in public, because you and I have talked about this online, and then I try to do it. It's way harder to actually put yourself out there and actually talk about those things. And yes, I'm a big believer in being honest and raw, and not sitting there saying, yes, this Lamborghini is mine, versus I really would love to get this Lamborghini, and here's my plan to get this Lamborghini, and here's how close I am to buying the Lamborghini. It's a lot more fun to watch that journey than the douchebag driving the Lamborghini. So I guess my question to you is, one, what made you decide to build in public? Because there's a lot more that could go wrong and that could go right for you. Like at this point where you're growing, what you built, your name already, you have a lot more to lose than to possibly gain from building in public.
I think about this often, actually. I think about this because the building in public has benefited me, like every element of my life. It's benefited me with strong employees. It's benefited me with deal flow. It's benefited me with opportunities, benefited me with travel. And the building in public, there's like the art of building in public is like, what are you uniquely positioned to share information on, positive and negative? What is your consistency of sharing that information, positive or negative, on an ongoing basis? What is your medium of sharing this information on an ongoing basis? What is your ability to come off authentically who you are in your real life online on a consistent and steady basis? Those are those questions that I would ask myself, that I go like, okay, here's where I'm willing to share the right amount of information, because it's still cherry picked in the status of there's some information that actually is not impactful. Like me talking about 14 call days with BD or internal teammates actually doesn't benefit anybody. And if anything, me posting that supports like the raw hustle bro culture that I actually don't support. Like, I don't think that's for everybody.
I look at it and I'm like, dude, gotta hire an assistant. Like, that's all I see from that. I'm like, Nick needs an assistant. And yeah, I said this to you like 7 months ago when you were showing me your schedule. I'm like, yeah, the first thing I see from that is you need an assistant, man. You're everywhere.
Well, I have, and Shauna, shout out to Shauna, who I've been working with for now like 2-3 weeks, going through things and updating it. And I also think the season I'm in right now is very unique, but I won't touch about that just yet. Building in public, I think there's some core things that you have to be willing to die on the hill for. And some, like, for instance, like I went very public on how do I support and be an ally to getting more women on stages, or giving them more opportunities to showcase what they have. And it was a general question, and it's a hot topic button, especially in the cancel culture that we live in, especially on Twitter. Well, I went for it, and I want that. I think and it was a good discussion overall. And what a lot of good came from this in the last, I would say 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I've talked to 25, 30 strong marketer brand owners, and those willing to share and give information. And I would have never gotten that if I didn't go public about it. I wouldn't have gotten that if I didn't have people come around it, to the point of like, we have an employee of mine who's building an e-com event just for women leaders. Fantastic. I'm gonna be that first person to write that check, right? So there's interesting things that it keeps and holds you accountable to doing it publicly, and it also allows others to learn from, because you get a lot of people that won't actually say anything, or they will be very ghost-like for you for a very long time, and then they'll pop up and be like, that thing you did back in that day like really changed my life. You're like, why didn't you tell me then, guy? Why didn't you hit me at that point? And that's fine.
I don't have the audience you have, and I bump into like some people and they're like, man, I love your content. I'm like, I've never seen you like a post, I've never seen you comment. Like exactly. it would mean the world to me. Like this is what I'm doing it for. But yeah, so I get what you're saying.
That's the best part about it. Like that's why we did the course. That's why we do the areas. And like, look, there's a polar opposite side of this, of people going like, fuck you, like you're not real. Like there's like 1 and 2, there's like 2 dudes specifically that have me on every channel that are just like, so dude, you're lying, you're this, you're that. I was like, bro, I've been doing this for years. Pull up all my content. It's the same shit over and over. It's the same story. It's the same strategies, the same overall. And so when you just kill them with like consistency, not even killing with kindness, this does come back. And building the public is really difficult on two areas. And this is what most people stop at: the consistency of needing to do it, and the things that are actually impactful to your followers. That is the area where you get that mix. You're like sharing to share without a purpose of a takeaway for it is not valuable. It never will be valuable. Just to make noise, to have noise, is not going to support or create anyone. But you can get away with this if you take it in a David Herman style, which is misery loves company, around platforms that we all want to rally against.
Yeah.
If you want to really
resident complainer,
if you want to get some love and support amongst your peers, just poo-poo some of the platforms that
well, that's why my most, like the most posts that I get the most engagement is when I shit on something, and I'm like, oh man, everyone loves the shit. Like I talk about something like positive, it's like crickets. I talk about like how client said this, how annoying our clients, and it's like, yeah, retweet. I hate clients too, and I'm like, I didn't say I hate clients, and you're in the client business. You shouldn't take on clients if you hate clients. But yeah, it's just, look, you're building in public. The constant side, right?
Oh my God.
That's the one that we see the most raw from you, in my opinion, where it's the, like, we get a lot of wins from you. Yes, I'm not saying you're not honest about everything else, but from the structured side, we get a lot of the wins and the geek out and the momentum that you're going in. But the constant side is where you're very, the roller coaster of going through it, and you're very open about it. Does that's the part that I'm talking about, is one, does that scare you from being as open about it? Because one, you have people paying you for this, right? You have people paying you for this. You have potential people who may want to pay you for this, and now you're maybe scaring off. You have employees who are running it being like, man, you're like, kind of like, you're not shitting on it, but you're kind of like, this is our livelihood. And you're kind of sitting there saying, yeah, we're tanking a little bit, but whatever. Like, that's not kind of the positive momentum, employees want to go through. And then four, whatever, I lost count already. But four is from the investor side, right? Which is the exit side. People want to see, like, okay, man, so is everything this guy, like, do I now have to look at his business a lot closer because of the runway? So that's the side I'm talking about, of the building in public, that I'm always concerned about when you make a post. I'm like, I love it because it's raw, and I'm like, man, I feel you. I'm going through those same things, and it's important. But then I look at it and I'm like, I don't know if I'd ever post that.
Yeah. Well, first off, for you to have the ability to regurgitate that back to me, I'm clearly building good enough for you to see all of it. So like, that pumps me up. Second, but
very different. I follow you. I'm like a stalker. I'm a fan. This is your third time on the show. It's like,
I know.
I got my I love Shaq poster behind me. Like, I'm a fanboy.
You're the one, but like you paying attention is like, I only want attention from those that I want attention from. I agree. I think building in public for the agency and Geek Out is something that's going to come more into, that will be more of my life when I have the time and I know my strategy around it. Constant. This has always been the strategy, because people know me not as a SaaS digital subscription product builder. And I want that audience. I want to be viewed as someone that's building in this space. And the only way that I know I can do that is to show that I'm building this space. Because we're not the first ones to do, like, No Limit Creative was out.
But you could still get those same people by showing the good side, right? Like you don't have to show like month 2 really, really bad, we lost all these people, right? Because number one is you want people to sign up for you. And I'm not saying, look, clearly I'm not telling you this strategy because it works for you. I by no means am I coming in. I'm just always curious why you would do it, because my initial response was, this may deter more people than actually help. And then, yes, there is that element of like, I want to cheer on the champion. I want to watch Nick build this, and I want to be part of watching him build it. But does that translate into people actually paying for your service? Like, there's a lot of people who want to watch people on a climb, but won't be part of, like, they'll be like, yeah, now that you built it, I've always been a fan. Now I'll write you the check. And you're like, I needed that a long time ago, not now, but.
No, dude, you're, I get you. You're spot on. So what we don't have metrics on is like the business that we missed out on because of the things I publicly shared. Now I've actually lost brands. I know this because they've said it to me by sharing content that we edited that they were lying to their clients saying that they were editing.
Oh,
so like I've actually had to apologize or refund or send money back and be like, dude, I'm so sorry I posted that content because you lied to somebody else. Like, I know, like I'm like totally comfortable expressing that because we are a white label service, but when you sign up with us, you like give us that ability to like share what we make. That's just like in the contract.
Read the contract.
Yeah, check it down the line, right?
Yeah.
I will never know the amount of money that I'm missing out upon because of those type of engagements. But what I have seen and felt is that people have come back after trying us on the MVP that we were, knowing that like, oh, the things that you talked about, the things that you're addressing are actually the things that I really needed or I need now. I want to give it a go. So we are seeing the benefit of the public building, and actually it's turned into something that a lot of people are fearful of because you mentioned the employees of the stress. A lot of businesses don't share the numbers to their employees. Sometimes you get like a selected amount of numbers. Sometimes it's not important for everyone to have the numbers. On a business like Constant, where it's a subscription purely, you have to live and die by the numbers because everybody's involved in retention because of how small our team is. So from Quinn to Guy to Mr. Moon to Jake to Alec, when we're building in public and they see me going about it, I jump on our calls and they're like, hey, Shaq, you should talk about these things. This is the shit that people really like us for. Actually, don't talk about this because nobody likes that. Nobody actually supports this. So now you start seeing this rally of, that's really cool. How do I get involved and contribute to that? Because they're literally able to see it and able to like understand the impact that they're having, and then understanding how that impact of posting and sharing turns into business. And it's full circle because a lot of people don't understand or can't necessarily articulate all the things in a way where the reader or the end user, end consumer actually sees that valuable and they can be like, I want that. And that's a gift that I have. It's something that I really, really care about of gift of gab and gift of communication that I want to continue to showcase. And so you have to be that for those that aren't that way in your team.
So I'll leave you with this.
Yes.
How has your leadership style changed in the growth? Like, how do you think you've evolved as a leader? And for someone out there who's listening right now, who wants to build the teams, right? Who wants to build up, what are some of like the biggest things? Like, man, if I could go back in time and tell myself this, I could have been a better leader from the start and I could have been further ahead.
I think at the beginning, I've always been able to listen and have good conversations with people. That's something that I'm uniquely different than most, but I was never as direct.
So let me stop you there because I want to just be a little bit tactical before you go.
Sure.
What's necessary? So someone listening is like, man, I think I struggle with that. How do you become the better conversationalist, the better communicator?
Yeah.
And then I'll let you go back on your tribe, because I think you gave a good answer, but someone's like, okay, cool, easier said than done. Like, if I'm not Nick, how do I become that communicator?
So I think there's a beauty in open space of silence, and I think there's a beauty of asking a better question. Let me just focus on those two things. I think if those two things are all you do, you're going to improve on communicating and listening. The time that we have right now of doing this face to face, and the time of us having calls and schedules more detailed than we've ever had in our lives, because generally as an employer, as a worker bee, you have your day, you don't have maybe one or two meetings. Now everything is a meeting, or it's like I have to have a plan to come and talk to you. Mm-hmm. The ability to look at someone or have an ongoing conversation like this is heavily predicated on the ability you have of asking proper questions that are not leading someone to an answer, questions that are steering them to a conclusion that we both need to have, questions that are, and I wish I had an example on top of my head, which I'm going to like challenge myself to get, show what a good question is versus what a bad question is. And then the ability to let people speak and just sit in comfortable silence is a lot of people don't have. A lot of people don't have that ability to just sit and be like, all right, here's my question. I'm going to let that sink and go, give me back that answer. For instance, we have one of our creative directors who's becoming one of our leaders, who's trying to become one of our leaders. And the questions that I ask him on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday basis are this. I'm going to pull it up specifically so I actually don't jumble it up. What was something that didn't go according to plan that you might need or have to need? What is something that didn't go according to plan that you have now new thoughts on or need help on? what did you work on big picture today? What was a process that you were tweaking or looking to improve on? In what areas specifically? So it's really, you could have hit them with like, what are you working on big picture? And they could go with this. They could rumble all over the place. But the fact that you go like, what are the processes that you're tweaking or improving to hit that big picture? So that needed extra context is making them be more specific around this.
Yep.
The second one would be like, what are you personally learning and what are you personally looking to improve on your skill and your craft? What are you personally learning? That's I'm learning how to cook. Like that's everything. But the context secondary after it was like, are you improving in areas of your skill and your craft? That focuses the question a little bit more. So just like those on an ongoing basis, that's an example that I would say for better questions. Better questions provide better answers. And we had another come to Jesus moment the other day of like, when you're big enough, like you have to run it up the flagpole when you get to any size. What are the gates that you have to go through to understand who I need to run this up and which flagpole I need to run it up and how fast I need to run that up? So we actually had like a working session in the car. I was like, oh my God, like why didn't we ever talk about this before? Because he never had those feelings where he wasn't ready to hear at that time what I needed him to do. And that happens very frequently these days. That's what I'm talking about in terms of good questions, good conversations. Then you let that sit and let them speak.
Okay, great. That helps. Now, your leadership, what you wish you would have, obviously your leadership had to evolve as the team grows and you acquire. And I mean, better question, right? Because better questions get better answers, like you just said. So let me rephrase the question. You talked about, becoming that leader, and they asked you, are you the guy to get us from 15 to $30 million? Are you that person? What leadership qualities do you think you're missing or that you have to learn to have that ability to get there? And what's the difference in the leadership style that took you from 0 to where you're at that you're going to need to get to 15 to 30?
Oh, good question. Fantastic question. So I would say
I listen to you when you talk, brother.
There was the area that right now, the one you just asked me was like, am I that person? I think that, this is the same thing I told John when he asked me this question. He goes, Nick, now I'm not trying to like say anything about it, but like, are you that person? And I go, a lot of the time when people question, are you that person? It's because that they're no longer excited or motivated to solve that problem, which means their enthusiasm to problem solve or enthusiasm to push through the times that are not super fun is making them feel like they aren't the one to get them to the next level. Second, if you don't have people around you that have done it before, or a mentor that has been able to guide you or can answer questions when you need that guidance, then you probably shouldn't be the one to continue to build it. I have those. I have both of those. I have the energy, the excitement, and enthusiasm to continue to solve that problem. And then I also have the people around me to do it. And it's not a novel thing. Like, people have done this before. Like, this building and growing or scaling an agency, like, it's happened before. And there's a lot of people that have talked about it, maybe not as public as we're doing it right now, but still have talked about it. So there's resources out there. So with all those three things combined, I still can stand here and say, between myself, between Jake, between the rest of the partners, we definitely are the ones to continue to lead it. Do I think I need more people that have literally built, grown, scaled, and exited an agency to be in my life and my circle? Absolutely. And I have them. Like, I'm actively paying, as we've talked about before, investing in those to give me that unique access or unique insights to something. I'm willing to write the check because I think it's worth it. Your second question, which was,
what's the difference in leadership style that you needed from get to 0 to where you're at now that you would need to get to?
I think so. At first, I think I wanted to have communication with every single person on the team. Like, I wanted to touch every single pod, onboard, etc. And I think now, being very specific in what it is I'm doing and that talking the same group of people that I am talking about that have the most impact are the two differences that I think will take us to the next level. Before, I was spreading my time a lot amongst everybody, which as much as that fills up my love tank, probably wasn't the most efficient way of doing things or running the business. And now, like, my routine is set up in a way to where the agendas are correct, the people that I'm talking to are correct, the people that they're talking to is correct, and everything is like an action item that when we come away from. Before, it wasn't that. Before, it was like, hey, check, pulse check. How are you? You good? All right. See you next week. Like before it was that. And it can't be that way. It can't be that way to make me feel good, to have a pulse on what's happening within the team. Now it's like I'm putting a lot more trust and faith into the leads I have in those areas. So, but I will say as like it's direct action item for immediate growth of leadership. I just pulled myself out of conversations that I thought were important that are no longer important. And when I feel like something needs to be done, the person that has to be the one to do it is the one that's closest to it. We have a very, very quick and immediate debrief where we ask 2 questions of like, do you have enough information that you need? Do you have all the information you need right now to make a decision? Yes or no, depending on how they answer. How do we go get that information? Or like, okay, with that information, can we go make those decisions today? And if you can have those decisions today, awesome. Action's been taken. And as you and I both know, action speaks a lot louder than words.
Love it. We'll let you go with this one final rapid fire question. If you were starting off in marketing right now, someone starting off in marketing, most lucrative, important, maybe they're 2 different questions, but most important lucrative skill that you would tell someone to go learn right now?
I would tell them learn how to take critical feedback and criticism.
Technical skill in marketing. Technical skill in marketing.
How's that not a technical skill these days? Okay. In marketing, Google shopping and Google search is the technical skill that I think you all should learn. Facebook, the reason why I'm not saying it is because it's more heavily on creative. And I don't think everybody needs to be an editor or motion graphics designer.
I'd go with copy.
I know you would.
Become an amazing copywriter. I think that's my thought.
I do not disagree.
Yeah. All right, brother. Thank you so much. For the listeners who, I mean, if you haven't heard Nick before and you need to figure out where to reach out to him, then I mean, you haven't listened to my podcast ever, and I go back and listen to like the 18 episodes he's been on. But for listeners who want to reach out to you, how can they find you?
I am Shackelford on the Twitters, and then I am Nick Shackelford on the Instagram. I appreciate you, buddy. Good to see you.
All right, we'll link it up. Thanks, buddy. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want, check out our most recent video over here. And this one is the one YouTube thinks you'll like. But if you really enjoyed watching, please do me a favor, like and subscribe over here. Thank you so much.